Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, and if you are new, welcome to my channel. I am Jamie Beth. Today we're going to talk about haunted asylums throughout America. I do want to add that my air is running right now, so I do apologize for background noise. It is very, very hot here in Michigan, and the air is just constantly running for some reason, so I do apologize if you hear some background noise. The first asylum we are going to talk about is called the Old Tooele Hospital, and it is located in Utah. Something I'm going to do different today is I'm going to start with my eye makeup and then do the rest of my face. So, in 1987, Old Tooele Hospital started out as a family house. In 1913, it was transformed into what is known as the country poorhouse, where the elderly and those who had special needs were taken to be taken care of. In 1953, the building changed again to what is now known as the Old Tooele Hospital. I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly, and I do apologize if I'm not. But this Old Tooele Hospital featured improved accommodations for patients, the added benefit of individual bathrooms, and a dedicated morgue. Before it was closed down in 2001, the hospital made its name by being the filming spot for Stephen King's The Stand. An Alzheimer's patient known as Wes is said to haunt the hospital, with his favorite site being the room he was admitted to when he was alive. Many other ghostly characters have been sighted in the hospital, including a young child and Samuel F. Lee himself, the man who originally built the house for him and his family in 1897. One of the most chilling reports at this hospital is the sound of a child's voice uttering the words, "Daddy shot, sorry." This is creepy enough on its own, but it gets even more alarming when you find out that the Utah Ghost Association's claims these words came from the ghost of a child who was accidentally shot by his father. Next one I want to tell you guys about is the Alton Mental Hospital in Illinois. Any of my new subscribers, I'm always reading notes when I tell these stories. I do extensive research and I write down a bunch of notes so I have something to tell you guys. I don't memorize it all because my memory sucks. When you see me looking down, that is what I'm doing. I'm reading the notes I wrote. Alton Mental Hospital is the only one on my list of hospitals that I'm talking about that is still up and running. So it's not an abandoned asylum or abandoned mental institution. It is still up and running. It was built in the early 1900s. This hospital is known for harsh mistreatment of its patients, which I am surprised when I read about this that I found out it was still an opened facility, knowing that it's known for hurting their patients. Many of these patients are subject to electroshock therapy, lobotomies, and cold water treatments, all of which are standard everyday practice at this hospital. Many people today, including staff, patients, and visitors, have reported hearing unusual noises. One of the creepiest reports comes from a nurse who was on duty and heard someone ask, "Who's that?" She turned around to respond and discovered that there was no one there and no one had been in the building at the time. Later that day, the exact same thing happened in the same place to another nurse. This facility is still a hospital today. There are no ghost tours or anything like that available there. But people who have taken photos on site while visiting other patients have reportedly caught images of orbs with the painted face of a human male in the front. Next up is the Danvers State Lunatic Asylum in Massachusetts. Often referred today as the Witch's Castle on the Hill, the Danvers State Lunatic Asylum was built in 1878 on the site that was originally in Salem Village, the first actual location of the witch trials. Danvers was known for its modern treatments and superb patient care. care. Unfortunately, it wasn't long before the asylum fell victim to the lack of funding, overstaffing, and overpopulation, which caused it to deteriorate into something more akin to a concentration camp. Between 1940 and 1950, the facility housed more than 2,000 patients in a building that was built for 600. Patients became haggard and ghostly, often left in complete isolation for days on end. Things were so bad that the dead patients would go unnoticed for days, if not weeks. In 1992, Danvers State Lunatic Asylum was closed down, demolished, and renovated into a set of apartments it is today. Despite this asylum being torn down and reconstructed into something else, bizarre activities and paranormal sightings still are noticed. Residents and visitors have recorded full-body apparitions, flickering lights, and the sound of unexplained footsteps and doors opening and closing on their own. Many of my wonderful subscribers actually lives in this apartment building. Please let me know in the comments below. I would love to know if you've had any crazy experiences. It's literally so hot outside and humid and gross and sticky that our air conditioning doesn't know whether to stay on or off. So again, I'm sorry for background noises. Next up is the ByBerry Mental Hospital in Pennsylvania, and hopefully I pronounced that correctly. This mental hospital opened its doors in 1907 when it started off as a working farm for the mentally ill before it became a fully fledged mental institution in in the 1920s. More and more people were admitted to this hospital because of the fact that it was starting to get overcrowded. This led to severe patient neglect and unbelievable levels of abuse. Lack of funds left this hospital in a state of disrepair, with patients being forced to survive with no clothing, insufficient food, and sewage-filled hallways for bedrooms. Added cells, solitary confinement, regular beatings, electroshock therapy, and lobotomies were the norm in this hospital. In 1990, state authorities closed the hospital down after a thorough investigation revealed inhumane living conditions. A myriad of horror stories surrounds this facility. After it closed, it became inundated with vagrants, gangs, thieves, satanic cults, and former visitors seeking shelter. One mentally deranged and brutally violent patient is said to reside in the miles of catacombs beneath the building. The hospital has also been the spot of several paranormal sounds and sightings, including human-like growling and physical scratches appearing on visitors' bodies. The next mental institution we're going to be discussing is the Rolling Hills Asylum in New York. This asylum began its life as the Genesee County Poor Farm in 1827 and a dumping ground for the outcasts of a society. Orphans and widows lived alongside the severely mentally handicapped and criminals, all of whom were known as inmates. There are more than 1,700 documented deaths, with hundreds more unclaimed bodies believed to be buried on the site. In the 1950s, the Poor Farm was developed into the Old Country Home and Infirmary before it was transformed into the set of shops and later an antique mall. One of the strangest occurrences took place in 2007 when the Rolling Hills case manager, Susie Yenser, was working in a public ghost hunt. The group sat in a circle in the basement and Susie began to speak. A glow stick, the only form of light in the room, began to sway back and forth. A rocking horse started to move to and fro, and several people saw a hand suddenly appear and reach for a ball. The second floor corridor on the east wing is commonly known as Shadow Hallway due to its staggeringly high number of shadow figure sightings which walk through the halls and crawl across the floor. A 7-foot tall patient with giantism is commonly spotted in this room where he spent most of his life alone. The next asylum we're going to be talking about is the Athens Lunatic Asylum in Ohio. This asylum was opened at the beginning of 1874, specializing in the treatment of the mentally and criminally insane, who were admitted by court or by their own families. The facility started out as a calm and pleasant place where patients could relax and get better. But before long, it became an overcrowded institution which relied on the cruel practices of electroshock therapies, ice water baths, and ice pick lobotomies. The story of Margaret Schilling takes place in December of 1978. On this winter day, Margaret, a patient at the Athens Lunatic Asylum, was playing hide and seek with a nurse who got distracted and forgot about her. In January of 1979, her body was discovered by a maintenance worker. Today, an imprint of her body, clothes, and hair are still clearly visible on the floor, even after decades of cleaning. Patients who have died without family have been buried anonymously in the asylum's grounds, which is reported to be haunted today. Instead of names, these grave sites display numbers. A practice which resulted in a mass of unknown and unrecorded graves. Those who have been brave enough to explore the cemetery have reported a huge number of ghost sightings and unexplained screaming in the dead of night. Next, we are going to be talking about the Essex Mountain Sanatorium in Essex County. This sanatorium began as the Newark City Home in 1873, a facility which was designed to serve as an orphanage, as well as to reform the local badly behaved children. After a devastating fire, the reconstruction of 2 new buildings, and the decline in the number of girls sent to the facility, the dedicated female building was transformed into the Essex Mountain Sanatorium in 1906 to care for tuberculosis patients. Over the years, the hospital grew considerably to cater to the ever-increasing numbers of patients until it was no longer in use by the 1970s. The vacant wards were used to take care of the overflow of mental patients from the nearby asylum before the sanatorium finally closed its doors in 1977. Since it closed, many people have chosen to step foot on the grounds and explore the sanatorium themselves. Some of the most common experiences are hearing footsteps running along the halls, seeing wheelchairs moving on their own, witnessing ghost-like faces appearing at the windows, feeling a presence following you around, and possibly the most terrifying of them all, hearing eerie voices shouting, "Get out." Waverly Hills Sanatorium in Kentucky is the next one we're going to discuss. It started out in the late 1800s as Waverly School and evolved into a hospital in 1908, designed to safely accommodate between 40 and 50 tuberculosis patients. As the disease developed into an epidemic, the hospital was expanded to support at least 400 patients and was considered to be one of the best facilities at its time. The hospital was closed down in 1961 following the discovery of a tuberculosis-curing antibiotic. Today, Waverly Hills Sanatorium is known by many as the most spiritually active place in the world, with paranormal reports every single day. The terrifying reports surround the story of a nurse who hung herself by a light bulb wire when she discovered she had become pregnant out of wedlock by the owner of the sanatorium. Many unusual sightings have also been spotted in the area known as the Death Tunnel, where dead bodies were disposed of away from the eyes of the living. So any of you stay in any of these asylums, apart from the one that still is a working hospital, any of these abandoned ones where you are able to do tours and whatnot, would you stay the night in any of them? Let me know in the comments below. The next one we're going to talk about is the Pennhurst Asylum in Pennsylvania. This asylum is riddled with strong accusations of neglect, abuse, and torture, combined with the tales of mental patients being chained to the walls, children being kept in cribs for years, and even murder. Not surprising that Pennhurst Asylum is one of the scariest places in existence. The building was opened in 1908 as a state school for the physically and mentally disabled and covered 120 acres, housing more than 10,000 patients at any given time. The facility was often accused of dehumanization and was reported to provide no help for the mentally challenged before finally being shut down in 1986. When Pennhurst doors closed, the buildings were abandoned as well as the patients' belongings. They were just kind of thrown about and medical equipment was just left there to rot. There are plenty of haunted asylum stories emanating from this asylum. Several reputable ghost hunters have visited this asylum, and there are documented spooky audio recordings, sudden changes in temperature, and unexplained movement of objects throughout the grounds. Next on our list is the Middletown State Homeopathic Hospital in Middletown, New York. Unlike other asylums, this one used homeopathic treatments designed by German physician Samuel Hahnemann rather than being subject to harsh electroshock treatments. Patients had a regulated diet and were given opportunities for exercise. Male patients even had their own baseball team. Tragedy came from an outbreak of fires that happened in the early 1900s. Today, the buildings are used for government-funded groups. Many employees report an inexplicable feeling of being watched. Next up is the Taunton State Hospital in Taunton, Massachusetts. It is shut down. It shut down in 1974. However, it was the final home to the notorious serial killer Jane Toppan. And if you don't remember who Jane Toppan is, she is also known as Jolly Jane. She is the nurse that killed multiple elderly patients by giving them doses of morphine and atropine. It also seems that the staff in this hospital had an evil streak as well. According to reports, doctors would force patients to go into the basement to perform chilling rituals. After the hospital shut down, visitors noticed what they described as a shadow man looming in the hallways. Last but not least, we're going to talk about the Western State Hospital in Staunton, Virginia. Western State Hospital opened its doors in 1828. I always want to say 19 when it's 18 and 18 when it's 19. So 1828 as a tranquil space for those suffering from mental illnesses. The beautiful grounds and mountain views made for a wonderfully healing environment. However, because there's always a however, under the jurisdiction of the new superintendent, Dr. Joseph D. Jarnett, things became very grim. This institution was federally banned in the 1970s. Dr. D. Jarnett implemented sterilization as a form of eugenics. The space continues to hold the spirits of mistreated patients. There has been countless reports of paranormal activity. So that is the video for today. Those are the places or some of the asylums that I think were or sounded the most haunted. I did leave out a couple though, because I will be discussing them a little more in depth in a later video. So look for those videos. I won't tell you which ones it is. You're gonna have to stay tuned and find out. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and remember to hit that subscribe button down below if you haven't already, as well as the notification bell next to it to be notified of all of my upcoming videos. Thank you so much, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.